It's literally 5 minutes into my first meeting ever. It was the pressure of 200 people's eyeballs on me. They wouldn't stop looking at me until I said the words they wanted to say. That's like the person who taps out who's getting tortured. Did you really have free will in that moment? Hello, welcome to the Sobriety Bestie podcast. My name is Kirsten, and you guessed it, we are here for another episode of Culty Comments up in the woods today, where we are going to look at the comment that is coming from somebody who is likely inside the ideology of Alcoholics Anonymous, whether they're in AA or whether they just have been indoctrinated into AA like most of us in society, and we're going to deconstruct it. And it's not about them, it is about our own freedom from deconstructing the ideology that they are vibing through. So this culty commenter writes, everybody is in charge of their own mouth. You do not have to say anything to anybody if you do not want to. And this is in response to that we are made to self-diagnose. That was the conversation, that we are made to self-diagnose in Alcoholics Anonymous as an alcoholic or as a real alcoholic. Now, everybody is in charge of their own mouth. You do not have to say anything to anybody if you do not want to. To me, this is not true. We think of things like Patty Hearst, right? Do you know the story of Patty Hearst? Let me know in the comments if you know what I'm talking about, where she was kidnapped, she was put in a closet, she was abused, and eventually, is it called Stockholm Syndrome? Eventually, she sided with the predators, essentially, who kidnapped her, and she went and robbed a bank. And this was in the 70s, I believe, and this really showed a lot of people about thought reform, mind control. There was a whole court case about it. And so when you think that we have our own free will, when people say you can leave AA at any time, it's I always think you clearly don't understand thought reform. Either you've never studied it, or maybe you're mind controlled yourself and you believe you can leave AA any time. But the people who believe you can leave AA at any time are not the ones who are leaving, are they? They're the ones who will never leave because they're the true believers, most likely. Now, I can't say anything across the board. This is all generalizations. For context, I was in AA for 10 years and I left 5 years ago, and we're here together deconstructing AA. And so what I wanted to share with you is the first time that I didn't have full control of my mouth, which does sound weird. So obviously, in one hand, I understand what he's trying to say. Everybody is in charge of their own mouths. But my very first ever meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, I was in rehab and I walked in the door. I went to a non-12-step rehab on purpose. I paid more, which was brutal, because I did not want to go to a religious cult, Alcoholics Anonymous. And so I'll do anything but AA. It was how I felt when I was signing up for rehab. And so when I went into that first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous while I was in rehab, while I'm walking through the door of AA into this sober living home in Los Angeles, I said to myself, they're not going to make me say alcoholic. They're not going to have me betray myself. And then we sit down in the meeting, and then my friend who I went with from rehab, he sat right up front. There were seats up there, so we sat on this couch at the very front. There was 200 people in the room. And they said, is it anybody's first meeting? I raised my hand. I shouldn't have done that, but I raised my hand. And they gave me a little keychain with a serenity prayer on it. And then they sat down, and then now it's time to go around the room and introduce yourself. So everybody in the room has to say their name and obviously identify as an alcoholic. And so they start with me. Let's start with the person whose first meeting it is. And I said, hey, I'm Kirsten. And then I shut up. I knew what they wanted. Obviously, we know what they want us to say at an AA meeting because we've already been indoctrinated by the culture of Alcoholics Anonymous throughout Hollywood, throughout movies, throughout films, throughout TV shows, throughout podcasts, throughout everything, our whole life. We already know by the time we get to AA what the deal is. We know there's steps. We kind of know it's a cult religion, don't we? And we know everyone says, hey, I'm Frank, I'm alcoholic. So I'm sitting there, I say, hey, I'm Kirsten. And then the guy that I went to rehab with, he's elbowing me and he's and alcoholic. And I look at him and I'm not vibing it. And it was about, I don't know, maybe it was about 30 seconds, maybe it was 2 minutes. I don't know actually how long it was that I was silent and nobody else said anything, where the pressure was building inside me physically. I felt like I was about to have a panic attack. Keep in mind, I am in rehab. I'm about 10 days off of Klonopin, off of benzos. So I'm going through benzo withdrawal. I'm a couple of weeks sober because I'm still on my 30-day rehab treatment. So I'm early sobriety. I don't want to be there. I don't believe in it. I had all the anxiety disorders at that time. I still had panic disorder. I was agoraphobic, so I was afraid to leave the house at the end of my drinking. All of this stuff going on. social anxiety. So did I have the power of choice in my mouth in that moment? I mean, you could say yes, but really what it felt like, am I going to have a panic attack in front of 200 people? Or am I going to say the words, and I'm an alcoholic? 4 words or a panic attack in front of 200 people. That was my choice. I chose to not have a panic attack. It felt like I was a volcano about to explode. That's called coercive control. When you are highly vulnerable, like somebody coming off benzos in rehab for alcohol and anxiety, and you are pressured to conform to the group's identification ritual. So you say, I have choice over my mouth, or we have choice over our mouths, but do we? No, I know everybody isn't, it's not that high pressured of their environment when they go into their first ever meeting, but that literally was my first experience. That's certainly not the only time that I was coerced or pressured to do things inside Alcoholics Anonymous. So when you're told that you're going to die if you don't do what's in the program, which I didn't know my first meeting, I was not indoctrinated. It's literally 5 minutes into my first meeting ever. It was the pressure of 200 people's eyeballs on me. They wouldn't stop looking at me until I said the words they wanted to say. That's like the person who taps out who's getting tortured. Did you really have free will in that moment? You know what I mean? So to me, when people say you can leave every time or you didn't have to say that, it's like, are you sure? What about the pressure? What about our vulnerability? What about the emotional manipulation? That's emotional manipulation to make us conform to the group. I am so curious. What is your experience with the pressure, the high control, the coercive control within Alcoholics Anonymous? Were you made to feel like you had to say things that weren't true for you? Did you betray yourself like I did at my first meeting when I said, I'm Kirsten, I'm an alcoholic, when I did it literally just to get the million-pound eyeballs off my back so that I wouldn't have a panic attack? Did you ever feel coerced or pressured into say things? What about the group confessionals? What about having to share in the meetings when you're called on? What about the 5th step? What about the whole confession culture? Are we really in control of our mouths when we're not in control of our minds? Is that how mind control works? So let us know in the comments what your experience was like inside Alcoholics Anonymous. Were there times that you said or did things that you didn't want to say or do? What was that like? What do you think about it now? Let's unpack it. If you haven't heard already about the Escape Kit, Escaping Alcoholics Anonymous, there is a bunch of us deconstructing AA together off of social media inside an app. So if you want to join the Escape Kit, there's resources in there, there's downloadables, and there is a fun community vibe happening. I'll drop the link below for the Escape Kit. If that's your vibe, would love to see you inside. Whether or not you dive into the Escape Kit, I would love to hear from you in the comments. So join the conversation in the comments. Let's make it really rich. Let's see what everybody thinks and have it be a meeting of our minds. Because it's not about what I think. It's not about what this commenter thinks. It's about what we all think. Critical thinking, in my view, is seeing the different perspectives and then making those decisions for ourselves on what is true for us. Awesome. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.